Hello and welcome to Pellicar. This is Nuts and Bolts, episode 10. This is the show where we look at world building as it pertains to RPGs, storytelling, and Dresden's Tale in particular. I'm your guide, Lewis Nichols. I've been involved in gaming for about 35 years. I've run many successful campaigns. Some might even say I'm an expert. I've done a little writing, had a few things published. As far as YouTube videos, I've been doing this for about 6 months now. Not an expert at all, but I'm glad you are here to join me on this adventure. Today, we're going to do a case study looking at the life of one-legged Larry Longhauler. He was born Larry Longhauler, and for a while known as Larry Blackhammer Longhauler. We're going to talk about this guy's life as a warrior and focus on his skills. Before we get into the life of this human from the Marauden clan, we're going to first take a little detour into the jargon of Pellicar. There are many ways to look at and classify skills. There's your simple skills versus advanced skills, production skills versus professional skills, and multi-skills versus the one-offs, just to name some of the differentiations. Among those, scattered into the mix, you have the divide between percentage skills and standard skills. Standard skills are one-time investments. You spend your single skill point, sometimes two. You put a little time into it, maybe a little bit of money to develop the skill or getting somebody to teach you, and whammo, there you have it. You know all there is to know about that skill. For instance, first aid. You learn it, you get the full benefit from the skill. 10 levels later, whether you've used it or not, still the same. Get the same results from using that skill. You can take related skills. You can take herbology. Some priests get added benefits to binding wounds and the other things that first aid helps with. But ultimately, when you just look at that one point, that one skill slot, it never changes. However, you also have percentage skills. Now, lores are a good example of this. So let's look at something simple. Let's look at animal lore. You spend your time, your money, your effort. You fill your skill slot, 1 point, you have animal lore. You now have a 5% chance of identifying whether you're looking at a horse or a cow. Now, seriously, it's up to the tone of the game, the players and the GM, how you want to handle skills at various power levels. Obviously, common sense and character experience should make some difference. But what matters to this discussion is that you can improve that skill by putting more effort into it. So you've had your basic training down at the local community college, and you decide that you want to be better at your percentage skills. So you take your 5%, you go to the school, you train 5 days. At the end of those 5 days, you roll a percentage dice, throw in your mentality modifier, and if it's higher than 5%, your skill is going to go up by a number between 1 and 5. So let's say you roll your 4. Now you have a 9 skill. Start at 5, get 4 more, that's a 9. This is also your math class lesson for the day. Thank you very much. Then you train for 9 more days. And then you have to roll higher than a 9. It goes up again. So you don't have to be a math wizard to see that getting into the 30s is pretty simple. Getting over 50 starts to become much more difficult. And the higher you go, it is exponentially more difficult. But that's enough math. That's enough basic information. Let's talk about Larry. So Larry was born in Patronsburg just weeks before the final evacuation by the Questers. He grew up in Marvin's Point. His parents were wealthy when living back in the Holy City, but even though much of that wealth was lost to the formation of the clans, they still had a strong network of influential friends and began to rebuild their economic security. Larry's parents were warriors. They had their first proud offspring moment when their son got into a fist fight with the neighbor boy at the age of 6. Both sets of parents were right there to coach their children on during the fight. 2 years later, Larry was allowed to spear a pig to death in a celebration of Jasmine's High Holy Day. A few months after that, he began his apprenticeship in the household's stoneworking shop, first sweeping the floors and then helping with the tools, storage, starting with the grunt work, but eventually over time learning more and more about the trade. By his Starkenfang, Larry had filled 2 of his 3 possible ancestral skills. One in stoneworking, capped at 15% as an ancestral skill. The other was in horseback riding. His Starkenfang? What? In a level-based system, there's always an age where a Velito can start acquiring experience points. In the case of the Pellicar system, this is called devotion points, but it all works the same. In the Celt culture, that coming of age day is the Starkenfang. Larry spent his first season as a warrior standing guard on the walls of Marvin's Point. The next year, he participated in operations with a larger force against remnant populations of the Howls. Still not grown to his full height, Larry was a bundle of vigorous yearning. He bothered the local paramilitias, the churches, everybody he could find to find him better missions. He threatened to run off and do his own exploring. His mother described him as a perfect warhorse, just eager for battle as the rider, but of course, still necessary to control. Now by this time, he'd made his first level or 2, heavy into weapon skills, and basic survival skills, anything that would help him out on the trail and didn't put him in the classroom for too long. At the age of 18, Larry took a year's service, delivering parcels back and forth to Parncilia. It came with a promise of longer missions into less tamed lands the next year, and his career was on the go. He was accepted into the Church of Jasmine as part of their junior PM, the Ferocious Beavers. The majority of fighting groups inside the organizational umbrella of the Eastern Alliance, they're assigned to the churches. Each of the 24 churches maintain 3 to 5 of these paramilitias. The Beavers had a roll call of 40 members when Larry joined, with an operational team of 15 the year that he fought with them. He showed such eagerness and promise that the very next year he was promoted into the church's second-tier team, the Urban Fury. This band of warriors spent 2 years operating in and around the non-clan city of Sormeal, attempting to stifle a smuggling ring and bands of hired assassins. His contributions to the clan led to land for his family, as well as resources, training opportunities, and prestige. His wives and children became part of a greater Longhauler house, making it one of the 10 most influential houses in the clan of Marauden. By now, Larry had taken on the name Blackhammer. His victories were many. The foes he defeated not easily counted. But alas, we are always reminded such a life is infinitely dangerous. As fate would have it, the very day he received word of a new promotion, his band of warriors encountered a large group of trolls. In the blood-soaked battle, the Fury lost half their numbers. Many of the survivors would never fight again. Larry came away with a mangled leg. For 2 years, he fought against retirement. He could not bring himself to admit it, but in his heart he knew his career was over. With his mobility impeded, he was not the asset he used to be. Taking jobs as a military commander and a mounted fighter, he lived with the worsening discomfort of the soldier's life while planning for a time when it was not even a possibility. He turned his studies to theology, becoming a low-ranking priest of Jasmine. Early in his studies, he gained engineering as a free skill. He was able to move his old stoneworking skill into an accelerated path, also provided by his education in Her Holiness. As he began to train more and fight less, He took simple skills to enhance his stoneworking and engineering. He specialized in sculpting and granite work. He trained in math, anything to grow his basic understanding of his faith, his trade, and the field of engineering. Now, engineering is a standard skill. You learn it, you've got it, you're able to follow blueprints, you're able to follow the basic concepts of engineering. These abilities can be improved by increasing your trade skills. However, the engineering field also refers to a multi-skill. Multi-skills are skills that have previous requirements. So once you have engineering, and once you have your trade skills up to a pre-required amount, you can start to develop more advanced skills. One-legged Larry became a bridge builder for the Marauden clan. Instead of traveling with hardened warriors and seeking danger, he traveled with work teams, sleeping in pavilions and overseeing the construction of roads and thoroughfares to help and aid the growing empire. Over the next 2 decades, he continued to accrue devotion points. He continued to gain levels and skill points. He learned more about engineering. He learned more about the theology of Jasmine, became a capable spellcaster, and well respected throughout the empire. It was not the life he had planned. It was not the subject of great bard's tales, but it did fulfill his role within the society and the duality and his faith. I want to thank you all for hanging out with me while we talked about One-Legged Larry. If you want to talk further, leave a comment. I would love to discuss with you the different career paths and different lives that people might live in the Dresden's Tale. If you can, subscribe to me on Twitter. That's the best way to follow channel updates. Hit that like button. Subscribe so you'll never miss a show. But most importantly, as always, have an absolutely wonderful day.